I hope you enjoyed your coffee break. We're a little bit behind, but Elijah said that he'll make his talk like 2 minutes long or something. So coming up, Elijah Caine.
Hello, how's the volume? Is it good? Talking? Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay, great. So, oh god, so where's that? Everything's falling apart. That works. Hello. Like was said, my name is Elijah. My talk is called How to Write an Email, Writing Better Email to Make Email Better. The more pessimistic version was writing emails that suck less to make emails suck less, but I tried to make it a little more upbeat. So before I start the talk, I have some questions, so a little bit of interaction with you guys and gals and people, and okay. Sorry, so first, who here has ever written an email? Wow, that's shocking. Okay. Next question. We'll see if there's a similar demographic. Who here has ever read an email? Wow, okay, good. Who here has enjoyed every email they've ever read? One person. I don't know. There's one person the first time I did this too. So for those playing the home game that didn't see the hands, everyone raised their hands for the first two, and no one raised their hands for the second two. And my screen went off. Awesome. So let's introduce me so you know who's talking a little more. Some of you have already met me, but for those of you who have not, my name is Elijah Caine. I'm 20 years old. I attend Oregon State University in the States, and I run a Linux users group. So we meet and talk about Linux and woo! I'm also a developer at the Open Source Lab, so I develop mostly Python and JavaScript software. The Open Source Lab does hosting for projects like Apache and Drupal. And I also help run a class for DevOps, which teaches people around Oregon State University how to develop and run Linux servers, or develop software on Linux and run Linux servers. And if you want to talk to me about those, because I'm super into them. And I also enjoy public speaking, hence I made the trek all the way out here to talk. So I keep myself busy, which means my hobby is I like to sleep a lot. So yeah. Email is a very big topic, so I should establish some trust, or maybe lack thereof. I'm not an expert on email. Is anyone here an expert on email? One person? You in the back? Okay, maybe you should come up here and do the talk. My major credential is that I'm 20, and I kind of grew up with the internet, so it's sort of my second home. And I care about my second home, like most of us care about where we live. And as a result, I really want to make the internet as great a place as it can be. And the form of communication that is called email is a very big part of the internet, as we all know. We all interact with it. So basically, that's my investment. I've thought about email a lot. I have talked to a lot of people about email and their hate of email. So that's my major credential, is where I don't have data, I do have a lot of interaction with people, and I've talked to them about their distaste, and I'm sort of trying to voice that with this talk. So what won't be covered in this presentation is how to organize your email, email life hacks, tools that you can use, how to create an account, things like that. Essentially, before I did this talk, I was curious. I Googled, or searched, whatever, how to make emails suck less, because that was my initial title for the talk. And there were a lot of articles about like life hacks or workflows and things that you can use on the technology to make it more understandable, or more, to make it suck less, I guess. And I realized that was not the talk that I wanted to give, mostly because there's already so many resources on the topic. So instead, I'm proposing basically something more akin to if you write emails that suck less, email will suck less. You don't need to add software that, tack software onto this already arduous, large behemoth of technology. You can just go back to basics and say, if I write a solid email, people will appreciate it. This will make more sense as I get less nervous. So I'm going to cover 3 main topics. First, why email is terrible, sort of the problem that I'm trying to solve. Second, how you can write an email that solves this problem. And then why this matters, sort of tying it all together and bringing it into the broader internet. So email is terrible. It just kind of is. Not Gmail specifically, just email as a whole. And before I get into why, I should voice that it isn't all terrible. It has some really good traits. I talked to my stepmother about this, and she gave me 3 really solid points. First is that it's convenient. Second is that it's ubiquitous. And third, it's dependable. I should expand on that because those words don't really mean anything. First, it's convenient. Everyone has it. Think about all the devices you have on your body right now that can access email. You have your laptop, your desktop. You don't have your desktop with you, but whatever. Your laptop, your desktop, your phone, your watch, your glasses in the future or now, whatever. It's everywhere. It's on every platform. It's very easy to use, and everyone has it all the time. It's also ubiquitous, which means that everyone, not only is it readily available, not only is it on every device, but everyone uses it on those devices. So I have an email address, you have an email address, and everyone's willing to give away an email address, or rather, give you their email address. They might not want to friend you on Facebook, follow you on Twitter, or give you their phone number, but they will give you their email address, or at least one of them. So that leads into the next point. It's very dependable. This essentially means if you send an email to someone, they will receive it. It's not like, let's hope they get it. They might tell you they didn't get it, but they got it. So that's something to keep in mind. It's TLDR, it's really big and very useful. It has a lot of traits that we like, and that's why it's survived for so long. So it's not entirely terrible. It does have some positive traits, but the first problem that I have with it is that because it's so prevalent, because so many people use it, it has this problem that I think a lot of large projects have. There's some cruft. There's a lot of bad stuff in email, meaning that a lot of people don't know how to write a good email. So just like with the internet, there's a lot of bad content on the internet. There's also a lot of bad emails. And this doesn't mean that they don't know how to write. Every single person, specifically engineers, they know how to write. They just don't know how to write an email. They've all been to class, they've all learned the 3-part essay or how to construct a message, but they haven't learned how to write an email. And I'll talk about what that means when I talk about the solutions, but essentially, they're very good at writing. They know how to write when they need to, but they're not very good at recognizing that an email is just another form of writing, and that they should use the lessons they learned at school and through practice in an email. It's a sort of a mindset thing. So second is email is a little bit cumbersome. So let's stop it right there. Okay. So email is cumbersome in that if you have a small message you want to deliver and you have to deliver it over email, it feels like way too many steps, right? So you have to open your client, that might be a browser. You have to click compose, choose who you're sending it to. If you're sending it to a CC or BCC, you have to give it a title, which is just, I don't even know how to do that. And then you have to give it a body, and the body has to be actually well written and not just a stream of consciousness thing. And then you have to send it. And my metaphor is it's like a box where you decide who you're sending it to, you put your message inside, you give it a title, and you pass it off to someone, and then that's in their inbox, and they have to open the box, look at what's inside, and then respond by putting your stuff back in and putting their stuff back in. The metaphor falls apart. But essentially, it feels very hefty and big, whereas something like Slack or IRC, you just go into the appropriate channel. It might be a private message or it might be a group message, and you just say, hey, I have a thing to say, and then you press enter. That's much shorter. And if the message is small enough or conducive for that smaller medium, then you should probably not be using email, because you don't need the big box, you just need like a little slip of paper. Just pass it on. So, another problem that a lot of people have is inbox overload. And this is basically, who here feels like they have way too many emails in their inbox? Oh my god, that's like everyone. So, one second. So, this is a problem that I think a lot of people face. They look at the number of emails they have, and they say, that's way too many. And I actually checked this out. I used to have thousands of emails, and then I said, today I'm going to solve this problem. I'm going to get rid of most of my messages, so it's like chasing the zero inbox. Who's heard that phrase? Yeah, exactly. Chasing the zero inbox, trying to get the number of messages you have as low as possible. I looked at my messages earlier today, and I realized I have 700 unread messages. Wow, that's a lot. And then I started scrolling through them, and I realized most of them don't matter. A lot of them are messages from coworkers that say, I'm going to be out of the office, I'm going to be late, or I'm leaving early, or sometimes they're mailing lists. And not to say that information isn't valuable, but it shouldn't be an email. And the fact that it is an email just sort of bloats my inbox and makes me want to touch my email even less. One thing that I like to say, I don't know if anyone else feels like this, but I have like 10 emails in me every day. Like 10 emails that I can like solidly like read the message, respond with like a really good response. And if I end up reading your email and it's worthless, or it's too short, or it doesn't need a response from me, I used to have 10, and now I have 9 messages. So now that's just one less message that I can adequately respond to. So I don't know if everyone else feels like that. I might be the exception, but the number of messages that I have in my inbox makes me want to touch my email even less. So the solution is that you can make this all better by just using the technology. There we go. By using the technology appropriately. So email is very good. It has some very positive traits, and using email to its positive traits will make it suck less. And I'll just get into it. So we're going to talk about how to write an email. And these are pillars, by the way. These are the 3 pillars of a good email. I kind of pulled them out of a hat, so if you disagree, please, I would love some feedback. But the pillars of a good email are that it is well organized, it has ease of information, so it's easy to process it, and it grabs the attention of the reader. So this is important because, I'll just get into it. The first part of the email, though, is the 2 in the front. Sorry to have 2 lists right next to each other, but you have to deal with, when you're writing an email, who you're sending it to, before you even think about the content. And this boils down to just know your audience. So know who you're talking to and know who you are. And if you understand that, then you can actually start to grow your message from there. So if you know who you are, I'm a speaker, and if you know who your audience is, the Write the Docs mailing list, then you can understand what their expectations are for who you are. So I'm a speaker, so if I wanted to send something out to the mailing list, I probably wouldn't say something like, we're going to be meeting at this place at this time, because that's not my job. But I could say something like, hey, I need an adapter, or something like that. So understanding who your audience is and who you are in relation to them helps you grow your message. And if you think that this doesn't quite work, like, my audience shouldn't be over email, then maybe you shouldn't be using email. And I'm sort of slowly hinting at what this whole talk is about. But that's sort of one of the takeaways, is knowing who you are in relation to your audience can really help grow your message. And it will also help with the overloaded email, overloaded inbox. So if you're sending an email out to 1,000 people, but 1,000 people don't need to see it, and only 3, say you're sending it out to an entire company, maybe don't send it out to 1,000 people, and only send it out to the 3 that need the message. Does that make sense, what I just said? Okay, cool. I got some thumbs up. So now we're going to move on to the body. Not that body, though. It's a different body. To begin, I'm going to talk about what you shouldn't do with your body, the body of your message, and then I'm going to talk about what you should do. And as a note, I'm never going to talk about the title of the email. I apologize. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to write a good title for an email. Maybe make that homework. Do that. So here's what you don't do. Oh no. I'll just talk about it. So this would be a wall of text for those at home. And oh man, this is just terrible. Okay, so this would be a wall of text, and basically it's just line after line after line after line of text, and sorry. Who here has ever read a wall of text email? Everyone. Who here enjoyed it? Who here was even okay with it? Yeah, a few? Okay. So a wall of text is not fun to read in documentation, and it's also not fun to read in an email. Essentially, the problem with it is that it's hard to process. So most people that write a wall of text don't realize that they're making an inaccessible email. They're just writing their thoughts on the page, and when they send it off, they assume that the reader can manually process that message. But if you send a message out to 1,000 people, or even 10, you're making them work to receive your message. Does that make sense? This is just sort of the problem with the wall of text in general, is that you're forcing the reader to spend their resources, their cycles, processing this message. And if you don't do that, you make the reader appreciate your message a lot more because they don't need to work as hard for it, and you make it more accessible. So it's more talking about accessibility, and it also is just kind to the reader. It takes a lot less total man hours for you to write an email that's well constructed than it does for the reader to have to deconstruct your message. So also doesn't show up. Awesome. So this is an email that has one line, and my slides will be available online. You can check them out. This is basically one sentence. So trust me. So the problem with the one sentence email is that it's a waste of an email, if that makes sense. I described an email as sort of like a big box with things inside. The box is very empty if it's just one line. And the problem with this is twofold. One, if you only have an email with one line, you're probably either not supposed to be using email for this message, or you're not saying enough. So if you're not saying enough, say hypothetically you're a CEO at a company, and you send out an email that says, "Hey, we're broke, by the way, I'm sorry." You shouldn't have sent that email, as it was. Thank you. And you have a little more to say, I'm pretty sure. So this boils down to, if you have one line, read it and think, if I was the reader and I had no context for this, would I know what was going on? Would this answer any questions? Or would this just generate way more questions? So if you have a one-line message, you should probably think about expanding it. Alternatively, if it really is just one line of text, like, by the way, I'm going to be out today, I'm not going to make it to the office, that's adequate. Like, you actually only need one line of text for that. But email might not have been the right thing. Email is very forced upon the reader. So they look at their inbox and they have to process each message they receive. Whereas something like Slack or IRC is very passive. You put a message on a bulletin board or a room, and the reader can choose to look at it. So if you were to say, I'm not going to be in the office in a Slack room, or whatever they're called, then people that need that information can find it and choose to do it, but they're not forced to read it. So that's sort of where that comes from. If an email is too short, you're either not saying enough, or you should investigate using some other medium to deliver that message. So, awesome. So this is like a shorter paragraph. So it's like a wall of text, but it's like 3 sentences or 4 sentences. And the reason this is good is because it's concise. It's maybe not well structured, but you're at least choosing your words carefully. This can either be the wall of text that's shortened or the single line that's expanded. So the one paragraph is good, it's better, but even better, also doesn't show up sick, is like the 3-part essay. Everyone here knows what that is, maybe? Like, you have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Solid structure. Everyone's learned it in school, or at least heard about it in some capacity. And this not only works for creative writing, documentation, but it also, or can work for documentation, but it also works great for email. You have an introduction, you say what the message is going to be about, and then if they don't need to read it, they can just bail at that point. And then you have the middle, which says, there's an event going on, it's going to be at this time, here's where it is, here's what's going on. And then the end is maybe a call to action or a summary. Structuring your email in that way allows the reader to dependably know, from reading the introduction, that this has nothing to do with me, I can bail. And if it does have something to do with them, then they know the introduction tells me what it's about, the middle says, expands on that idea, and the end is the call to action. It's a common structure that they can read, and it's sort of like pre-processing it for them. More about pre-processing. Hey, what are those?
Bullets.
Hey, exactly. Who likes bullet points? Everyone, great, I love you guys. So bullet points are great. I'm so glad those shut up. Bullet points are great. In addition to processing your message with paragraphs, you can also process it with bullet points. If you have a paragraph that begins, I have 4 things for you to do, and then no bullet points, you have to manually think, what are the 4 things? Like, the suspense is killing me, but not in a good way. And if you have bullet points, though, you can think, oh, those are the 4 things for me to do. Easy peasy. Another thing to investigate is using an animated image. So I call them GIFs, just to be funny about it. Some people call them GIFs or GIFs, they're wrong. Every time I make a message or send a message out to my mailing lists, if appropriate, I have a beginning sentence that says, here's what we're doing this week. And then I have a relevant image. And then I expand on that idea at the end. And this is good because, going off of our pillars, it's pretty well organized, I think. It has an introduction that tells you what it's about, so you can bail if it's not related to you. It has pretty easy to process information, the beginning, and I have a middle and an end. And it grabs the attention of the reader. The image is captivating. You want to read it. You want to know how this relates to my message. So, moving on, another option is don't write an email. This might sound crazy, and I might have been hinting at it the entire time, but you don't need to write an email. If that's the only mode of communication you have, investigate making that not the case. I use Freenode for IRC, and some people use Slack, and these are just really good ways of having a constant stream of communication with other people. But there are many other ways to communicate. YouTube, Facebook, things like that. Sometimes email is not the right medium. And when you think about the message you want to deliver, think, is email even the right way to deliver this message? And so, thank you. So this moves on to my very rushed final point, why you should care. Like, why does this all matter? So like I said, I sort of come from the internet. I sort of grew up with the internet always being there. And something that happens, I think, is that people don't think about the message that they're delivering and how they're delivering it. Many of us do. This is for the people at home, because you guys are all great. But something that a lot of people don't think about is, what am I saying? Not only how am I saying it, like the words that I'm using, but is the way that I'm delivering the message to my audience even correct? So in many cases, if your inbox is overloaded, the people sending you messages might not be using the right medium. So the first lesson is make it count. Just when you're writing any message you're putting on the internet, make every word count. This is because we're moving into an era where everything is text-based communication. And if you don't make it count, there we go. If you don't make it count, you're just adding to noise. So my Facebook feed is full of a lot of noise, but when someone crafts a message that's very well put together and respects the reader, I understand that, and I feel that, and I pay more attention to them. Something else to consider is know your medium. So, like I said, email might not be the best way to communicate, and understanding what is the best way to communicate can really make your message more effective. So, Facebook or Twitter or YouTube or Google+, these all exist for a reason, and the people use them because of what that medium does well, usually. Some people are forced to use email, but things like Facebook, I sort of don't use Facebook because I don't like how the communication works. on that platform. But I do use things like IRC because I like how that platform allows me to communicate. So using that platform well and using it to its strengths makes your message even more powerful. And I don't have like specifics on how to do this, just like practice makes perfect, I guess. And lastly, in addition to knowing your medium is knowing your audience. So, yeah, we're gonna stop it there. Oh, yeah, there we go. So knowing your audience is also very important. You should know that, if I'm making a Facebook post, think about the strengths of Facebook, but also think about who you're talking to. Are you just posting to your friends, or are you posting on a group? Things like that. Basically what I'm trying to say, the one takeaway you should all have here is email is fine. Like, it really is. And you're fine at writing emails. But what you should consider when you are constructing any message on the internet, before you even start writing, is think, is step 0 even in the right location? Like, I'm writing an email. Should this be an email, or should this just be a private message I send to someone on Facebook or Slack, right? So that's sort of my big takeaway, is we're going into an era, we're already in an era, where text-based communication is hyper-prevalent, where like everything is like bits and bytes going over whatever. And considering not only the words you use, which are important, but like how those words are being delivered to your audience is really important. And just thinking about that can actually make your message very powerful. So in conclusion, that's my Twitter handle, that's my website. The slides are available at slides.elijahcaine.me, and all of the images link to their source or where I found them. I would like to thank all of you for listening, and I would like to thank Mikey for inviting me, and thank you.
Thank you, Elijah. Are you going to be open for questions?
Yeah.
Okay. Where would you like? Do you want to stand there?
I'll stand there.
There. Okay. So Elijah will be right there. He claims. And in 10 minutes we will go on to the next speaker. Okay. See you then.